but if it was roasted, boy klipa, then you're going to have to peel a layer of the chicken from the outside that touched the kutach. You have to peel it off. There's two opinions here in Rishonim and in the Gemara. When it says here tzli, roasted, if it means that it's hot and it fell into the kutach, or even if it's cold but it was roasted, then it already absorbs more when it's roasted. It's more absorbent, and it fell in. Those are two opinions. V'yisbei pili, and if it has cracks, kulaser. Sometimes you roast it, like gets dry, and it gets like cracked, like the bark on the tree. It can get cracked. So then it's going to absorb inside the kutach. Then it's entirely aser. V'matuvel b'tavlin kulaser, and also if it was spiced up, then it's also more absorbent, and it's going to absorb the kutach. It's all aser. Okay. I'm going to need to get back to this this taisvus on the bottom, Hanimili, after we finish the Gemara on the next page. Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman says in the name of Shmuel, Kikar shechatach ala basar. If you take a piece of meat that's in the middle of being roasted, and you cut it, and underneath where you cut it, there's a loaf of bread. Maybe you're cutting it onto a sandwich or something. It's roasted meat. You're cutting the meat. So asalachli, you're not allowed to eat it. Now the concept is like this: that when you roast, the blood drips out. If you're going to eat meat raw, you don't need to roast it. You don't need to salt it, because even though there's blood in the meat, but Dame varim shalei pirish, blood that never leaves the meat, is permissible. It's only blood that goes out of the meat. You see, the real blood that was forbidden is the blood that comes out either by the shchita or the blood that's in the arteries that's contained. Here it's blood that's absorbed into the meat. That's not a problem. The problem is that if you want to cook the meat, then the blood is going to go out of the meat and it's going to go back in. So you salt the meat in order to be able to cook it. If you're going to roast it, then the blood just drips out. And you're not going to cook it. You're fine. The blood came out. You're allowed to cook it after you roast it as well, because the blood came out. However, if you're in the middle of roasting it and then you decide to cut it, so you with your pressure, you're pushing the blood that wasn't finished coming out, and it's going to drip onto the meat. Everyone's going to be concerned now. You go home, you take the meat out of the thing, you cut it before you put it into something. It's a problem. We're going to see it's not an issue. But meanwhile, right here, it's apparently there was an issue. V'hani mili dasmik. That's only if the meat is still red. V'hani mili de avrei. Then this is only that the bread is prohibited if it dripped all the way through. V'hani mili dasmik, and it's also only if the drippings are viscous. They have some thickness to it. Aval kalishta, but if it's just a thin, watery, the less lamba, that's not a problem. It's all when we take the meat out of the packages, it's all watery. It's not the thickness of the. Shmuel shadilei lekalbe. Shmuel would throw this bread to the dog. Rav Huna yav leilashami. Rav Huna would give it to his servant.
The bread is problematic. The meat is problematic.
Yeah, well, the meat actually is not a problem, because the meat you're just going to eat. It's not going to make it. Here you pushed out blood out of the meat. If you're just going to eat the meat straight, that's not a problem. If you would do other things to the meat, you would have to wash it off or whatever. But what's absorbed inside isn't the problem. It's only what's coming out. The problem with Rav Huna is he gives it to his servant. Manavshach ishari. Are you allowed to eat it? Lekuli almashari. Then everyone is allowed to eat it. Iaser. No, it sounds like it's a Jewish servant. That could have been an answer. But if it's aser lekuli alma aser, so why is he giving it to his servant? Mar says Shani Rav Huna danina daitya. It has nothing to do with prohibited or not. Rav Huna didn't like it. He was more delicate-minded. How do they translate anina daitya there?
Delicate constitution.
Delicate disposition. Constitution. Right, like an istinus, like. Rava would eat it. The Karilei Chamar Basar calls it the wine of the meat. He would eat this like gravy that came out. Amar of Menachem Amar Shmuel. Ein Menachem Keli Tachas Basad Sheyichle Kol Marad Mumas Shavai. We spoke about yesterday the grease pan that they would use.
Yeah.
You can't put this pan underneath the meat when it's. Here we're talking about. Here we're talking about roasting. Before we were talking about the salting, right? Here we're talking about roasting. Until all the redness has gone away.
Oh, wait, but yesterday we
meat.
said you can use the fat above in the blood, then they can,
Right.
unless it was the liver.
Right.
So
over
why
here,
is
what do you
it-
want to say? That
Why should be a problem? The only problem we had yesterday was when we were dealing with the liver, because we said the blood would go up above the fat level somehow.
right. It's a good question.
And you thought
I don't
I was
know the answer.
sleeping. You thought I was sleeping.
I don't know the answer. I have to look that up.
Okay, I don't know the answer.
Off the bat, I would say that was after the fact, and this is before the fact. That you did it already, and so therefore we're saying when is it permissible? Here we're saying that you shouldn't do it lechatchila, but I have to look it up. Mina yadinan. How do you know when it's finished? All the blood coming out. So marzuch mishmeder of papam or mishitala timrase. When the smoke or the steam starts to go up, Rashi gives us two interpretations. Either the meat starts to smoke, starts to steam starts to come out of the meat, or because the fat is dripping down into the coals are giving off the smoke. Whatever the case is, that's the way of telling when the blood is finished and now it's the fat. And then you can put the pan under it.
A coal never becomes treif or fleishik.
Well, if you would want to eat it.
No,
but
but
you
the
know,
fact that the blood goes on the coals to constantly burn, that doesn't
No.
do anything.
No. Maskefla Ravashi asks the question, V'dilmatata mata, ilam loimata. Maybe only the bottom of it got roasted, and the top didn't get roasted. Now, the blood is still dripping through the top because there's one level that's closer to the coals. There's the upper level that's above the coals. That's more distant than the coals. So you put the pan under it to catch the fat, which you say is allowed, but it could be the blood is falling through. Oh, you with us? You need a Gemara? Oh, good. So Ella Amar Ravashi says, Leslie Takanta, you have no solution. Ella Mishta Beitarti Gilli Milcha. You have to put in two grains of salt. Two lumps of salt. Those days the salt came in lumps probably. So the 2 lumps of salt. That way the blood would get absorbed into the salt, and then you could take the fat off it. Now, Tosfos on the bottom writes that based on the Halachas Gedolah says that it needs to be specifically 2, because more than that would be a problem, as he says on the next page. So now you can't do this, because we don't know exactly what's the exact measurement of how big they are and all of that. So 2 lumps of salt, umeshvaya, and then you pour off the fat off the top of the vessel. Rashi also quotes the Halachas Gedolos, and Rashi says that a lot of salt would turn the blood into a liquid, and then it's going to mix with the fat. Like we said yesterday, with which part of the animal, the liver.
We were
The
talking
blood of the
about
liver.
the spit with the liver on top of it.
We said that the blood of the liver would end up mixing with the fat. So the Halachas Gedolos, which is one of the books of the Gaonim, they wrote on Halach after the time of the Gemara, the Bahag he's called. He wrote that it needs to be specifically 2 pieces. Otherwise, the salt is going to become too watery. It's going to mix with the fat. You won't be allowed to eat it. That's why Tosfos says now we can't do it, because we don't know exactly that amount. Amalei Ravacha Breder Avikala Ravashi.
So does this all mean, like, for instance, if you're cooking a hamburger or a steak on a Foreman grill, where the fat drips off into this little dish, does that mean that little dish is treif?
If we wouldn't have koshered the meat before, that would have been salted it before, that would be a problem. All our meat that we buy, unless it's kaparis, all our meat that we buy is already salted, so we don't have that issue. But if you would actually, at the kaparis, let's say, I'll take it home, and then you would want to use that, and you would just roast it on your grill, the pan underneath would be a problem.
Yeah.
So Rav Acha Breder Ravika says to Ravashi, Umiyamar Shmuel Hachi, that once did Shmuel really say that once the redness is over, it's permissible to use the grease pan. V'amar Shmuel said, Kikar shechatach ala basar asalachla, that if you cut meat over a loaf of bread, you're not allowed to eat that loaf of bread. It's a problem. Gemara says, Shani hasam dagav duchka de sakina palat. Over there you're cutting it. So over there, it's going to push out more. Over here, it's not pushing out. Over here, it's just what's dripping down, and it's just the grease that's dripping down. Amar Rab Nachman. Nachman says, Dagim va'ifah shemolchem zem ze asurin. Fish and bird and fowl that's salted together is prohibited. Talking about that the fowl is being salted to get the blood out. The fish is being salted for whatever reason. You salt it, maybe something like that. You make some sort of
Russian
the gravlax. So heichidami, what's the problem? Ibekeli sheina menukav. If it's in a vessel that doesn't have holes on the bottom, that means that just all this blood is going to start to fill up this pan as the blood drips out. So afilu oifus nami asiri. You can't even do that with regular fowl, with regular poultry. You can't do that. But if there's holes in the bottom, afilu dagam oifus nami shari. So what's the problem with the fish? It's all going to fall out the bottom, all the blood. So why is there an issue? The Gemara says, Laila mekeli menukav. No, there's a problem even if there's holes in the bottom of this pan. The way we do salting is we either put it in something that has holes in it, there's holes all in it, or you put it on a slant. Remember my grandmother salting the chicken after Kaparas in Rhode Island. She put it on the steps. She put a board on the steps, and she would salt it there. So my father would just put it on the barbecue. But my grandmother would do it the proper way, with the step by, and then I remember the feet, let me talk more about this. So the Gemara says that dagim mishum derafu kamayu kadmi upalti. The fish, they have a very soft skin, so they spit out all of their juices immediately. Va'ifis kamiti. However, the birds, the poultry, the skin is Rashi uses that same word, astringent, that it's shriveled or it's held tight. So therefore, it doesn't let out its juices so quickly. After the fish have let out all their juices, the poultry is still putting out its juices. And now the fish is going to be able to absorb. If you go through this taisvus over here, dagim, this huge taisvus, he goes through all the different reasons of how salting meats together don't become prohibited, because there could be a problem that some of the meats could have given out their blood, and the other meats the blood is dripping in, and especially if you have a piece of meat that's like this, and you have a piece of meat on top of it. So you start taking it off, you see that one of them collected all the blood from the meat on top. So go through all the different reasons. There's 4 different reasons. Da mishrak sharik, the blood just goes off. ID detared liflight laibala, while it's pushing out, it doesn't absorb, or while it's still open, it's gonna continue to spit it out. There's 4 reasons, and
let me ask a question.
goes through that.
You're salting them together next to each other. The juice is coming out from the fish first. Wouldn't the salt that's on the meat absorb the juice from the fish before it can extract the blood from the meat and create a problem of the blood from the meat? They can't absorb twice.
Okay. You're asking an excellent question.
That's why it's sitting in the chair.
It's this taisvus here. I'm not ready to discuss it. It has to do with if you can say chaticha nasas nevela even though the blood is not going on, but you're saying the salt is going to go on. There's actually two issues. One I'm going to get to. Maybe you're referring to that. Give me 1 second. So the fish is going to absorb the blood after it's already spit out all its own blood. The poultry, when you salt them together, it's all going to be spitting out the whole time. So whatever blood it absorbs, it's also going to spit out. Rav Mari Barachal imlach lebasar shchuta. Rav Mari Barachal salted. I should tell you, Mari Barachal is a grandson of Shmuel. His mother Rachel was taken captive by a non-Jew who later converted, and he's called by his mother's name. He's called by his mother, even though he converted. Okay, so he had a kosher meat that was being salted by Hadi Basar Treifa, right together with non-kosher meat. Also, Lakami the Rava came to Rava, said, "Is this kosher?" So Amalei Hatmeim says, "No, it's not kosher." It says in the pasuk, it says Hatmeim, the extra hay. That's the impure lesser tzin v'reitim rekiva shelehem. Also, the gravy that's coming out of the non-kosher meat is going to get absorbed into the meat, and it's going to be not kosher. Tosfos before brings a proof from this that when I'm salting meats, remember we said that Reb Chanina bar Rava mipashunya says that when the Shmuel say that the salt is going to be considered hot, that's only if it's so salty that it's not unedible. Tosfos proves from this that when you salt for to extract the blood, that's considered inedible. And he argues on Rashi. Yeah, he argues on Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael, one of the other Balei Tosfos. Proves because he just made it prohibited over here that the flavor of the meat is going to get absorbed into the other meat. Well, how does it get absorbed if it's just salt?
Yeah,
it must be that salting.
But that's min.
No, but min it wouldn't matter to us. We're talking about, is there a contact here? Is there heat that's connecting? And we're saying that salting, to be able to make it kosher, is considered that hot.
Is it that it's that hot, or that it's like liquid? You need an agent. Does the salt become the agent?
The salt is considered the heat.
Because heat by itself doesn't do it.
Yeah, well, if I have heat and I have something kosher and non-kosher, then the heat is what connects them.
No,
The salt doesn't.
touch together a hot, two hot dry pots.
Right.
Place you can milk cook together. They're both hot. They're both cooking. Without an agent, nothing has happened.
Right.
So, is this saying that the salt becomes an agent?
No,
Second,
the
let me shut
salt.
this.
by the salt.
There is liquid there.
Shut this off.
Yeah.
Where's the liquid coming from?
The blood.